only on kids.
A 10-year-old kid of today is probably not the same 2 years later. So adults don't grow that fast and kids grow very fast. So that's very dynamic. And nobody can really claim to know kids very well all the time. And because we work only in this space and constantly through our various businesses, we have that insight about who the 8-year-old of today is. So the idea was to basically share knowledge. And that's why Decoding Kids has come about.
15 years on, EduMedia today is a pioneer in using progressive media avenues and making the lives of children better, and that's how we define the role that we play. If you look closely at the education space and the kids space in India, you know, India is all about getting marks. We've got three kinds of companies that dominate the education space. Either you have schools and institutions, or the ones that cater to giving them grades, academic grades and tuitions for entrance exams, or products and services that are aimed at, again, giving marks for children. And the very, very funny thing about all of our education system is after 16 years of education, most of our kids are not employable. And that's the space we at EduMedia are striving to work in. In 2003, we met up with Horlicks. And Horlicks was looking at a platform. At that point of time, they were relaunching themselves. And they were looking at a platform which was very, very real. You know, Horlicks was something that a relative took to a sick person in hospital. That was the image of Horlicks. It was not something that was fancy. It was something that was real. And Horlicks believed in the overall development. And here was a platform that was available to them. And from the year 2003 to today, 10 years on, the Crayon and the Horlicks Association is going really, really strong. It's the sheer size and scale of this event. Every single year, it reaches out to over 2 million children, and anything between 2.5 to 3 lakh children participate in this event. And the interesting thing about this particular event is the fact that Horlicks Kids is for everyone, and that's how I started off. Everyone needs to be encouraged, and every talent is important.
People look at marketing to kids very negatively. But what we wanted to communicate through the day is if it's done right and if it's done in a responsible and effective manner, it need not be negative. And what we're trying to achieve through the day is, you know, push the message of responsible marketing to kids. So we have a lineup. We started the day with a session with kids. So there were 8 kids on stage who were telling us who they are. So they were from different cities. They were all answering the same question. So you could see the drastic contrast between when a 6-year-old actually gets onto something like a Facebook and how a 14-year-old reacts to a particular ad.
They say that they are together, but they are alone. They are alone together is the term that is very frequently used. But you know, you see the responses today. Many of them, what sports, what games. I was very careful to ask them what games they like to play, and I did not use the word sports. And they all, I think all of them said either hockey or cricket or table tennis. And one of them, of course, said that I like to play the guitar, which is what. So it was something, a moment for me where I really went back to my notes and all my preparation for today's session, saying that yes, this generation is all about. No, it's not so. That is a private world for them, but at the same time, they are all, encompassing of the other things that they can do.
Then we went on to a session from National Stock Exchange. So why do they look at kids? So how are kids future consumers, and how do brands look at kids from that point of view?
Today's day, we know that finance is not a subject which they're used to. It's something, there are a lot of habits which are not inculcated at their home. In terms of how do they save money, how do they, that money which is given to them, how do they utilize that saving.
Then we went on to rural marketing, which is a fabulous session by Pradeep Kashyap, and I think one of the most insightful sessions, and how even in rural India, brands are so big.
See, if you look at rural India, as I said, it is 2 to 3 times bigger than in urban India in terms of population of kids who have the purchasing power. We don't have a single apparel brand for rural India. Similarly, for educational toys and all. We don't have any brands which are focused around kids in general and for kids in particular in rural. First, there were a lot of doubting promises within corporate India that this is not for real, is it a bubble, will it burst? But now they are finding that rural is growing faster than urban, and for many years. What they are now trying to do is to evolve products or adapt products to the rural environment. See, otherwise the product by and large would be the same. But if I'm making washing soap and if the water is very hard in these areas, then you have to add softeners.
We're doing some activation case studies because that's really big when it comes to kids.
What we do generally through engagement activity to create attention among parents to the child's future. So we see that the parents see the child is talented and the child is participating and the child has confidence, that opens their eyes like, I need to plan for their future. I can't really leave my child in between, if there is something needed in future. So that's why we look at properties or the events where there is an active engagement with the parents.
They are like endangered animal, they are endangered word because of SMS and text and all that. There's a beauty in knowing a language in its purity and its complete form, and then using it in whatever way it is all that. And digital is a big integration this year. We have used Facebook in a very significant way. Because that's what the language or that's what the communication platform the kids and the youngsters use today. So that's what we have done.
Why are kids used in ads? Are they used more as a prop, or are they an integral part of an ad?
All of us become children when we sleep, because a certain innocence falls on you, and hope revives itself the next day that tomorrow is going to be a better day. That aspect of positivity is childlike. And that is what children are all about. And we today tend to kill it very quickly because we expose them to too many subliminals.
And the final session of the day, which is going to be the most exciting, is the unforgettable property. So we have Chota Bheem, who is, I think, the new Spider-Man of the kids today.
We have chosen laddus because laddus are auspicious for Indian culture. Laddus are given at any good occasion. So laddus are associated with goodness. So we felt laddus would be something great. Today's kids are eating junk food, and it may be fun for them, but it's not always good. So we want to promote laddus, and so many types of laddus are there, dry foods and all. So indirectly we're promoting health, which is also very important for the future. Few generations ago, Indians didn't have the confidence to face the outside world, but I think this generation is really proud of who they are, they're proud of the roots. We're showing challenges which they can't really face in real life. So they like that and they connect with it. Now what is interesting is Bheem is a show that connects very well with boy and girl audiences. There are hardly any shows for children that do both.
Very interesting panel discussion which Shruti moderated, and we wanted to talk about how some brands are doing it right, some brands could be better, how basically taking the theme of the day and putting it together in terms of a panel discussion. So we had a fabulous lineup of panelists also from different professions who gave their point of view.
We are all kids pretending to be adults. Now, we are here to discuss responsible marketing and advertising. And I thought the best way to begin is by understanding what irresponsible marketing and advertising really is. What about you, ma'am?
When the advertising doesn't address the conscience of an individual.
What makes somebody an irresponsible marketer?
Something that would be detrimental to the target audience out there, that would be responsible.
Something which goes against the civic sense of the society, which is socially responsible, which doesn't teach them good values. That's what I've called responsible marketing.
Let me hear from you, Karan. What makes irresponsible marketing?
So if you want to enter a school or a school platform saying that, hey, I'm seeking permission to come and talk to you about what is good for your children, but you end up using that opportunity to also try and push through sales of products in a backdoor kind of a fashion. Obviously, you're not being a very responsible marketer.
I want to move to Leena actually. She's an educator, as you know. There is a very fine line between the two, right? How do you define that thin line?
Well, for starters, I don't understand why we market to kids at all. I mean, when kids don't have the money to actually buy the product, why are we even, I mean, it's a form of brainwashing as far as I'm concerned. If you're marketing or pushing a brand in front of a child who doesn't have the filters that we have as adults, I think it's unfair.
Very quick response on that. Tabassum?
You can either take a stand that all marketing is irresponsible, or you can go to the complete, other extreme that I will go aggressive on marketing to kids. But the point is that whether you market or not, kids are consuming those products. So who are we kidding? to answer your point as to why do you even market to kids, is because kids are influencing purchase decisions. They are mature enough to understand the difference between what is good, what is not, which ad is only luring you or which ad actually has a good product. They're smart enough to take those decisions, and they do look at things objectively. So whether you market or not, they are consuming the products.
Yeah, well, I think when you're marketing to kids or even giving a message which has social responsibility, you can't do it 100% without actually mentioning your brand, because at the end of the day, you have a commercial alternative, I mean, a commercial perspective as well. The whole intention of the Bonvita Quiz contest is to get students to be more, aware of what's happening in terms of general knowledge, and really try to get them involved to know more about stuff other than academics. And okay, at the end of the day, you've got Bonvita advertised, so there's a thin line there.
So you are saying 90-10 is okay, even 80-20 is fine, but it should not be a 50-50.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Quick response from you, sir.
When we look at kids, we should not look at them as a homogeneous mass. A 12-year-old is in a different place than a 4-year-old. The second thing we should look at is what are the societal values that we have today? What is the context in which the kid is growing up? Is advertising and marketing the only thing that's affecting him? And in that context, therefore, you've got to define what responsible marketing is.
30% of India's population is below the age of 15, 30%. 20% teenagers. And together, overlapping, we are talking about 230 million, right, Tabassum?
Yep.
230 million consumers out there. It's a very, very attractive proposition for marketers. Let's not run away from that. But I want to get in Dr. Shetty here. Dr. Shetty has some very interesting views on how marketing, these activation programs and even advertising impacts a young child.
I believe in converting the advertisement to my advantage. Chai ke liye jaisa toast hota hai. I use this ad not to sell Airtel, I use this ad to emphasize friendship among small kids. A 4-year-old, as Mahesh said beautifully, gets imprints. He does not get information. You can imprint a child below the age of 7. Osho said it, Vedas have said it, neuro-linguistic programming actually says it. So I think what is good for my children is good for the market. That's the only test I would use for any marketing manager. But let's not get very puristic, moralistic. Pokemon cards, kids remember them. They don't remember Akbar and Shivaji. Small kids are not growing in isolation. Ads is just part of the life. This responsible, irresponsible, sahi, galat, dichotomous approach is not our philosophy. But sometimes when you say height बढ़ाने के लिए Horlicks पियो, then अपना शेट्टी को खुन्नस आता है. Then you go full-fledged against the ad agency. You go full-fledged against the brand managers, because these are criminal ads. These are liars.
Yesterday I was speaking to mothers, and they clearly said there is no such thing as ads targeting kids. A child is exposed to ads for women. There are ads which kids are not being able to just understand the context in which they are. What should a parent do then?
I see a lot of teenagers starting to touch early after a song or after a small video bit. And we tell the kids, talk more, touch less. Parents, unfortunately, globalized world does not give you time to agitate or to educate. So what is happening now? We are talking about emotional contact time, ECT. And ECT would not need time. So what we tell parents, 2 घंटा तो नहीं है ना आपको बच्चों के साथ बात करने के लिए, पर जब आप मिलते हो ना, homework मत पूछो. Because bonding will help children share bad news early at home.
Karan, you had something to add?
The only thing that I want to upfront here is any brand marketer sitting in the audience or on the stage has no business of being defensive about being a brand marketer, whether it's targeting to kids or parents or teachers or whoever else. There are 2-3 realities that we need to be conscious of. Number one, most of India is still a single TV household. If there is a proposition that celebrates and talks to kids as equally to teachers and parents, if we can encourage conversations within families, I think you have no business of being defensive. The problem is that when you don't have propositions and a lot of your communication is targeted only at product consumption.
Sure, you don't have the proposition to sell your products, be it stationery, in a school, but at the end of the day, you still represent a company which wants to put its logo out there, a brand recall perhaps that students will have when they are growing up. See, that intention is there.
The point I'm trying to make is that there is absolutely no harm in putting together your logo when that logo is put together with a message which makes sense. Why should children or why should parents or why should teachers not know about my brand and what I stand for?
I frankly have a problem with this ad, because if you're focusing on what children can achieve, that pencil or whatever has got nothing to do with it. So why bung that in at the end? It just makes, to me, it makes no sense at all.
I need people to know that as a brand, I stand to encourage that kind of conversations, that kind of dialogue between parents, teachers, and various other publics.
Fair enough, fair enough. Leena, let's get your quick reaction.
The ad speaks more to the adult than the child. I don't think the child's actually looking at that ad and connecting with it in any way. An adult is the one who goes and buys the school stationery for a kid.
Which actually is part of the intention
I'm
together.
not against us putting products in front of parents for children and saying that this is a great product for your child. What I'm against is putting where you're trying to brainwash or manipulate or influence the child in any way is where my issue is.
Would you like to quickly go through some of the codes that you have, that prohibit advertisers from creating certain ads and the ads that you've actually withheld?
Yes. The ads should not be showing child labor, for instance. Should not be showing things which are dangerous or hazardous for children. Should not be showing children who are playing with matches or inflammable substances and so on. And also the FDA has a very strict rule on how you advertise for foods for children. The complaint was from a housewife who said her child was not having fruits anymore because she was saying that, this is good enough if I have gems. Now, surely Cadbury's intention was not to get children not to have fruits. But the fact of the matter was children perceived it that way. So we actually upheld this complaint and Cadbury's removed the ad instantly. Again, when we approached Pepsi, they removed the ad. It showed actually child labor, and it showed this kid going through this hazardous tunnel and coming out.
I have a quick question on the CCC meeting, the Consumer Complaints Council. However, I have had complaints, and because we do a show called All About Ads on NDTV Profit, sometimes the time taken to take action is delayed. So the airing time is completed. Yeah.
Once a complaint comes through, we've got to first tell the advertiser that this is the complaint, give them an opportunity to respond. That itself takes about a week. And then we meet as ASCII and we adjudicate on the ad. And so the whole process takes at least a couple of weeks.
Now, as I understand also, you cannot take action against an advertiser, right?
So as I said, this is self-regulation, right? So we have no powers to really penalize, except now on television, we've got, because of the Cable Act, the government has actually recognized that an ASCII ruling will be upheld. So immediately we tell the channel and the channel takes it off. But we don't have the same success with press.
Really the question is, what happens to irresponsible marketing? All right, Tabassum, I want you to take
I was actually wanted to add a point from this particular ad that we saw. When I met Prahlad, I asked him what goes on in the minds of these people who create these ads. How do they come up with these ideas? And he said, nobody's really thinking. They only react. They're not testing before. There's no testing mechanism.
I don't think anyone intends to exploit the way it is shown here. It does happen, as you said. I think the biggest challenge we have is the process of creating communication is too short in India.
Yeah.
The way we do it, we don't spend enough time.
Testing.
I think the process is also in place in all good companies to make sure that it goes through a lens to make sure that you're not overstepping.
Research has shown, World Health Organization has a book on research on advertisements. Short-term violence can be provoked by ads which show violence. WWF gave us a lot of good work, a lot of money, because kids started kicking the other kids on their balls. And that really, there was a spurt of these kids. And then we had to go to the school, educate the parents, educate the kids. So there, I think violence is something which really against the...
I completely agree with this point that if you educate professionals who are doing this, they don't intend to do it wrong. So that's the same thing even Prahlad was saying. Go and conduct workshops. Tell them the kind of impact of what you are doing.
When you are brand marketers who are investing big dollars behind advertising campaigns, it's not as if you don't know what you're trying to communicate. Yes, there could be a mistake somewhere. That's possible. But are there techniques available to test ads at concept stages, to test ads before you after the ad is done and before it's put actually on a medium, of course those are available.
I don't fully subscribe to that because I've done a lot of testing in my life. We test for effectiveness, not for responsibility.
I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah. No, there are multiple ways of testing ads.
I am aware of that and I agree. Look, the point I'm making is, I don't think there is an intent to cross the line. And I've met hundreds of brand managers and I've worked with hundreds of media people. I think what happens is, due to lack of time, it slips by. And we don't have adequate processes in organizations. We don't put enough time in organizations to get it exactly right.
Is the intent somewhere to push the envelope? And these are two different things.
Some of these advertisements that he showed crosses the line. There's no pushing of envelopes here.
But in my view, in 30 years of research experience that I have, very few organizations, including ITCs by the way, would actually be testing whether the ad is socially responsible. I've not seen that happen yet. Correct me if I'm wrong.
We are talking about irresponsible, harmful advertising has a direct impact on a child. What kind of direct impact?
Then we see a lot of children with micronutrient imbalance. It's an era of low vitamin B, low vitamin D, low folic acid. And that is one big impact. In fact, affluent people have higher problems with micronutrients. Number two is that violence. My study shows that kids from the age of 4 till the age of 15 sleep less than what they should, for 5 reasons. One is the homework, second is the mom has to see Ram Kapoor, and then the water connection in poor families, it's early morning. So many reasons. And then what happens is that violence increases when kids sleep less, and the ad is a good motivator. And the ad actually triggers the violence. And the third thing is that a lot of boredom. When kids get addicted to advertisements, they don't play with hands and legs, they play with their fingers. And that is something which is very difficult to break.
One is self-image, because can you imagine what effect Fair and Lovely has on a dusky girl in school? They eat less, or the allure of junk food takes them on, and then the media perpetrated self-image comes in. So you have a lot more cases of bulimia amongst the teenagers today than you've ever had before.
I've often been told that if it's on television, if it's in the films, why should advertising shy away from it?
I agree. If it's on films, it's on content, why can't it be on advertising?
Okay, Mr. Rakshit?
Even the guy who's making the film has that same responsibility. Exactly. Just because he's shirking that responsibility doesn't mean that we should shirk it as well.
Right. Karan?
If you have a proposition that you want to communicate, I'm so sorry, but I sound like a stuck record. If you have a proposition to communicate, you don't really care what is being shown in the films. Now your proposition may get reflected in films or may not. If you don't have a proposition and yet you want to put a piece of communication out, then you try and beg, borrow, steal from everywhere and the larger environment.
Dr. Shetty?
Let the inner voice decide what you have to do. I think is very crucial.
Leena?
I believe that the films and advertising should be a lot more responsible.
Tabassu?
I don't think, I think it's a lot to do with the upbringing of the child as to how they internalize any message.
When you watch a movie, you go out and make that conscious choice to go out and watch a movie. When you watch a television program, you make that choice. You make that choice to go into the particular websites on the internet or to watch a video. You don't have a choice while watching ads. And please, let's keep that in mind. And therefore, marketers have additional responsibility between ethics and commerce. So ladies and gentlemen, this is not the end of the conversation. Keep your questions coming in even after the show. But I thank you all for your time and thank you very much.